Welcome to The Courage Effect. I'm Suzanne Weller, and this is a show about growth and unleashing what's possible. You will hear inspiring stories about what courage looks like, how we navigate what's getting in our way, and the opportunities that surface when we choose courage over comfort. Let's get started. Greetings, everybody. It is Suzanne. Welcome to The Courage Effect and happy summer. I am thrilled that it is summer. I'm thrilled that the sun is out. And I am here today on June 26th, 2024, to roll out our second Courageous Challenge. You are listening to The Courage Effect at the end of the day. So obviously, we are going to try to challenge you to get out of your comfort zone. What is it like when you realize these are challenges that I can integrate into my life? Last month, we rolled out the first Courageous Challenge, which is called Courage Up. And last month's challenge was about reconnecting with people. I heard some wonderful feedback based on this challenge, and I want to share a couple of those with you. And I also want to tell you about my own experience with this. The challenge was to reach out to somebody that you hadn't spoken to in at least a couple of months, maybe even a couple of years. And I had a few people send me feedback or just give me some stories about what happened when they embraced the Courage Up challenge. Susan from New York reconnected with a college friend. It was somebody that she hadn't spoken with in a long time. She said she recently took a trip to Mexico. It reminded her of when they actually went in college. And she located her, found her. She is now living across the country. Susan's in New York. And now her friend is living in Denver. So they reconnected. And she said it's been fantastic to actually relive some of their old memories. So love that story, Susan. Thank you for sharing. And then Mark in LA, he talked about actually reconciling with an ex. He left it on not so great terms. He said that he had some regrets over the breakup and how they actually ended the relationship. So he wanted to reach out, not to rekindle the relationship since he is now happily married and he knows that his ex is as well, but just to have a conversation about what happened. And the Courageous Challenge inspired him to do that. And he said it was really awkward and she was really hesitant at first to know why he was reaching out, but they ended up having a really powerful conversation and are starting to move forward in a friendship. Who knows what will become of that? But Mark, I want to acknowledge you for actually stepping up and doing that. Reaching out to an ex is hard at any point. You never know what territory you're getting into when you reach out to somebody you haven't talked to in years, much less an ex. So thank you for inspiring others to potentially do the same. Sean in Seattle, he reached out to an old friend of his from high school, his high school best friend, and they have made some plans to actually go out for beers next month. So that's awesome. Nice job, Sean. And then I want to talk about me. I actually reached out to about 5 people in the last month. So of those 5 people, I had some great conversations. One person I have not heard back from. I don't know if I will, but I have to reconcile that, see what happens. Maybe he will reach out to me. But of the others that I reached out to, I heard from all 4, and I've had 2 conversations as a result of it. Phone conversations, and one was actually on Zoom. One was a friend of mine who was laid off earlier this year, and she's been in a rough space. She's been navigating and interviewing for what's going to come next for her. We had a really good conversation, which she just needed some support and context, and thanked me for being able to talk her through some things and for just being there to listen. And she really needed it. So it was really great for me to not only reconnect with her, but she got a lot out of it too. And she really reassured me for that. So I love that. The second friend is actually a friend and former collaborator. He also runs his own firm. And we are now talking about doing some new collaborations together. What would it be like to maybe do some change management projects and maybe talk about leadership developments with one of the clients that he's currently working with? So that might be one where I've actually been able to not just connect with somebody that I really respect, have done great work with, but have maybe opened up new opportunities. So thrilled for that. Andrew, wonderful to be back in touch with you. And I look forward to seeing what happens with our collaboration. There's other stories too. I won't go there to share all of them, but for all of you that embrace this challenge, bravo. This is a big deal. Even if it's just sending a text to somebody, it all matters. So thank you for being part of the Courage Up community. And thank you for spreading courageous contagion, because that's what we are here for. And I want to make sure that that ripple effect keeps on going. Now we are entering the second Courage Up challenge. Today is June 26th, and for the next 30 days, your new challenge is going to be curious and ask questions. One of the things that we tend to do in our lives is that we might be asking questions, but a lot of the time we already know the answer to it, or we ask a question in a way that is giving advice as opposed to truly listening to what somebody brings back to us. How many times have you had a conversation with somebody where they've said, hey, I could really use your advice on something. I could use your perspective. And you're excited and you're ready to share, to share what you have and to support them. It feels really good when people come to you for advice. And as they're talking to you, you're ready to answer. You're ready to jump in and give them some feedback. So I recognize in myself, sometimes I don't listen as well because I'm so wrapped up on the answer or the advice that I'm going to be sharing with that person. Maybe you've been there. Maybe you've been there a lot. Maybe you've been there recently. I want you to think about maybe when you've done it and you haven't realized that you're doing it. We do this all the time. I do this multiple times a week. And the whole idea here is that how do we tame the advice monster, as Michael Bungay Stanier calls it in his book, The Advice Trap? How do we actually recognize when we have this need to always share our knowledge, share our expertise, share our advice, when it isn't necessarily beneficial for the person who we're giving it to? Because even if they ask us for it, and we can give them some great advice, it doesn't mean that it's not valuable, but maybe we need to listen a little bit more. Maybe we need to take the time to truly understand what they need help with, to help them to think through the issue, the scenario, or the problem a little bit more on their own before we jump in with advice. Or maybe we can challenge their thinking a little bit. That can be a really helpful thing. I even had a conversation with somebody this morning. She was talking about a challenge that she had with one of her current clients. And one of the things that I always say to, my clients and to my friends, and I said to her is, I encourage you to think about new ways that you might approach this. What are the things that you haven't tried that might work? Or what are the things that you've tried in the past that could potentially fit here? How can we change our thinking into being more curious, into sitting in true inquiry, as opposed to just jumping in and sharing our advice? This is a challenge that I am putting in front of all of you based on the shows that we have had in June. And those two shows were, first of all, with Dr. Erin Meyer, who's the Chief Conservation Officer of the Seattle Aquarium. That show was fantastic in so many ways, as are all the shows. But Erin was talking about a large project, a global project that she's been working on, and having conversations with all of these leaders across the globe and doing it all virtually, respecting all of the different cultures, ideas, needs, while challenging each other's thinking at the same time. So being inclusive and also helping to move things forward. Not an easy endeavor, especially when you have so many people at the table speaking so many different languages. She likened it to the idea of calling somebody in. love the idea of calling somebody in instead of calling somebody out, because you want to invite them into dialogue. You don't want to make them feel bad for what they've said. You don't want to shame anybody. You want to invite people into new ways of thinking and to better understand how they're thinking. So what she was talking about was really sitting in curiosity and not letting that advice monster or that judgment monster take over. And then in the next show that we had with Becky Salengut from last week, she also talked about having hard conversations and really balancing compassion and respect when there is conflict going on. We have innate things that we need to bring to a conversation, that we need to advocate for. And I don't want asking questions to mean that we don't bring our opinions and our thoughts to the dialogues that we're having. But because we live in this very polarized world right now, where things are very far apart, we see things in a very binary manner, how can we live a little bit more in the gray instead of in the black or white? How can I better understand people's perspectives that I might not have regular insight or understanding of? And I do find myself having conversations with people where I'm falling into judgment. I'm not asking questions. I'm maybe even potentially dismissing them and how they think and what they're bringing to my conversation. And that is a very dangerous place to be. I feel gross after I have that conversation if I fall into judgment, because it just feels like I'm reinforcing how I see the world, and I'm not respecting that people have different points of view. It is really hard to be open to other people's point of view, and it is really hard to respect it when you don't agree with it. But I'm finding that when I'm inviting those conversations in, when I'm at least allowing people to share their thoughts and their ideas, I'm relating to people on a whole new level. And I'm opening up, we're going to a different level. And I feel the same when people do it for me. I want to speak to myself. I want to speak to my truth. And asking questions is a really great way of doing that. And again, it doesn't mean that the conversations have to be about agreeing or disagreeing. It just means that you're coming together to have a conversation and to discuss a point. You're not coming into it with this idea of being right or somebody being wrong. You're not necessarily trying to prove a point. Again, how can we shift to a mindset of moving a conversation forward? And how can we do that with questions?
So we're at the halfway point. We're going to cut to a break. We will be back in a minute. You're listening to The Courage Effect. Stay tuned.
Hey everybody, it's Suzanne from The Courage Effect. As the seasons changed, I poked into my closet and discovered how stale my wardrobe had become. Everything felt boring, and I wanted something different and fresh. I grabbed my laptop and remembered Armoire. Why not clothing rental? I could experiment with new styles, from jeans to something fancy, without spending a ton of money and buying clothes I would only wear a handful of times. Armoire makes clothing rental easy. Build a perfect seasonal wardrobe with brands that are unique, sustainably sourced, and owned by women. All you have to do is take the style quiz, select items from your personalized closet, and they will ship them straight to your door. Armoire allows me to indulge in high-quality designer clothing with no guilt. They promote sustainability with fewer items ending up in the donation bag and landfill, and no dry cleaning fees. Trust me, your cramped closet and the environment will thank you. If you're ready to have your dream closet delivered to your door, you must try Armoire. And right now, my listeners can give Armoire a try and get up to 50% off their first month. That's up to $125 off. Just visit armoire.style, that's ARMOIRE.style/The Courage Effect to get up to 50% off your first month and never worry about what to wear again. Try Armoire today. Welcome back to The Courage Effect. This is Suzanne, and today I am inviting you to join me in our next Courage Up challenge. For the next 30 days, we're really going to be focusing on curiosity and questions. How do we ask questions to tame our advice monster so we're not just foisting advice on other people, but we're actually sparking new thinking and learning something ourselves? Here is your challenge. For the next 30 days, in every engagement that you have, it doesn't mean that it's going to be like if you have a quick engagement or exchange with somebody at the store, or just maybe something that's 5 minutes. But if there is a real exchange of thinking, of thoughts, of ideas, how can you integrate at least one question? And how can it be a more beautiful question? I say that that's based on the book of the same name, A More Beautiful Question by Warren Berger. And there's something to be said about questions that really are those magic questions that can potentially lead to new thinking and can spark change. Beautiful questions do not have to be long. In fact, I think they're more powerful when they're short. They don't have to be this complicated thing with a massive amount of tee up. It's something that will give the person that you're asking the question of maybe a second to pause, maybe a moment of real reflection to think through things differently. It's almost like you're opening up a crack, right? Like you're cracking open some sort of new idea. You're letting some air in the room. You're giving them the air and the space to think about things differently. So I'm going to share with you three of my favorite questions, which are 5 words in total. I call this the basic framework for coaching, but also to create change. Because let's face it, coaching is ultimately really about creating change in the person that you're coaching and letting them come to their solutions on their own and giving them support and being able to anchor on it and to move forward into action. So these 3 questions, which I've actually shared on a prior show, I shared this on the show where I talked about overthinking and how can we actually create containers for ourselves to work through scenarios or problems that we're having. These 3 questions are what, so what, now what? Let me walk you through this a little bit because it is incredibly simple, but I believe that it's incredibly powerful because I've seen this work not only with countless people that I work with, but also with myself. What is just the initial question? What's the thing that you're dealing with right now? A lot of the time we come to a scenario, a situation in our life, and we think, I have a problem. Maybe it is a problem. Maybe it's just complexity. Maybe it's something that you're dealing with in your life where you have various forces that are pulling you in different directions, and it's hard for you to reconcile them. But spend a little bit of time thinking about the what. What is the issue? Maybe then you can go a little bit deeper into like, why is it happening? What happens as a result of it? Where it's stemming from? But then what are the actual symptoms or the results of it? And what do you need to change? But spending a little time just really focusing on the what helps us to have a better idea of how to deal with it. I do believe that before we get into the how part of how we deal with it, we need to go into the next question, which is, so what? This is where you're really taking inventory. This is when you are deciding, is this a priority for me? Do I have the energy to be able to deal with this? And also, is this my problem? Is this something that I really should be handling, or is it going to be best handled by somebody else? This is where it gives us the opportunity to truly take that inventory on just perspective and prioritization. What do we really need? Is this beneficial if I move forward with it? What do I gain out of putting some energy or investing in this? Or what can I potentially lose? How might it be beneficial if I move forward? And then the flip side of that, how might it be detrimental? But these are all the questions that allow you to understand, is it yours to own? And if it is, What might you want to do about it? Is it a real priority for you? And then how much energy, time, attention are you going to invest in it? If you get to this point, you might assess this isn't mine to deal with, and maybe it's something that I need to let go. How do we actually let something go as opposed to diving in and fixing it? This is a pretty magic place to be because this allows us to reconcile where we spend our time and where we don't spend our time. And then the final question, now what? This is the action question. This is a matter of, okay, now I've made this assessment. What am I going to do about it? This is when you start to put a plan together. You start to get an idea of what actions am I going to take, or who am I going to actually work with to be able to get their buy-in or their investment into doing this action with me. When will it happen? How will I know? How do I bring accountability into this for myself and also for other people? But the now what is really when you get into the planning. But before you get to the planning, you don't want to put the cart before the horse. You need to make sure that you're doing the real assessment of what truly is the issue or the problem that you're dealing with. Why does it matter to you? And then if you're going to do something about it, that is the now what. This is really diving into the how and the when. And again, now what might be not doing anything, but if you decide not to move forward and to do nothing, then it's coming to terms with letting that go. And if you need to make sure that there are other people that you loop in to let that go. So these are a lot of questions that I've given you. This is the baseline of, for me, inquiry and action and creating change. This challenge is not about you spending every single conversation asking all of these questions or asking all of them of yourself. But I'm taking you down this road because I want you to see the power of questioning and the power of curiosity. I'm consistently blown away by some of the answers that I get to questions that I didn't even think were that meaty, but ended up landing with that person in a really insightful and meaningful way in the moment that I asked it. And what's so magic about it too is that it's not just the insights that they're getting through the thought process that the question has sparked, but me witnessing it and me learning at the same time. So it almost becomes this alchemy between two people. It allows you to go into this unknown space of curiosity together. And it really can be a beautiful thing. So that's why I love the book title, A More Beautiful Question. Because again, it's not just asking simple questions. You know, even when you meet somebody, or even when you write, you meet somebody for a coffee, even when you're reconnecting, instead of like, how are you? Maybe it says, what is going on in your world right now? What's good? What's your biggest challenge? What are you excited about? Now is the time to have these conversations, to not wait to have them, but also to ask questions. And start with one question in every conversation that you have. Give yourself challenges to ask questions differently. How can you start integrating questions into your conversation? And then when you do, you'll see what sparks. You'll get a better idea of where you want to go with it, where you can take it. So, courageous challenge of the month, asking questions and staying in curiosity. There is so much that we can learn by being in a curious place. It really allows us to listen to people, not pretending that we're listening to people, but really listening to people. It tames the advice monster. It keeps us out of that zone of thinking that we know the answers to everything. And that's where our ego might kick in. Yeah, it feels good, but maybe it's too good. Maybe it's not actually moving a conversation or a relationship forward. And then ultimately, how can you actually change this way that things are just done? Like, rinse and repeat. There are certain benefits to that. There's, we can save time, we can save energy. But a lot of conversations that I have, like, I want to spark something in me. I want to walk away with something new and something different. And I want to make sure that I'm doing the same for the person that I'm having it with. So how might you reinvigorate the conversations that you're having, and maybe the relationships at the same time. So for the next 30 days, how do you bring new questions, hopefully more beautiful questions, into your conversations? I want to hear the stories about this. This is keeping a whole trove of magic questions. I actually have a massive list that I've been curating and collecting. I started collecting this list when I was getting my coaching certification because I was in a room with about 30 people, including a lot of people that were in the program with me and master coaches and trainers and teachers. And some of the questions that were being asked just blew me away and made me think so deeply in a way that I did not expect. Sometimes they took me into really emotional territory. Sometimes they just gave me, there was something that I knew I didn't even have the energy to tackle right then, but that I wanted to spend time with it later. So I started writing them down. I physically was writing them down in a notebook. And over time, I've transcribed them into a Google Sheet. So I have them there. And it's just really good to go back at different points. I put them into different categories. You know, what are the ones that are good for reflection? What are the ones that are good for resetting, for taking inventory? What about the ones where I need to maybe gain some additional perspective? If I'm tackling an issue or a problem, or if I'm feeling stuck, if I feel like I'm just doing the same old thing and I need different progress. I'm feeling demotivated or everything I'm trying just doesn't feel to work right now. I wonder for you, how can you create your own collection of questions? That's not part of this challenge, but it's really something to think about. Is curiosity and inquiry, they help our brain. They help feed our brain in different ways. Maybe a question journal, maybe a collection of questions. Maybe this is a way for you to think a little bit about curiosity and how you might have your own little stash of secret questions. Who knows? I love it. I mean, I'm a coach, so obviously that's a big part of who I am and what I do. But it is magic to see what just a few words put in the form of a question, what they can do. So move forward, ask questions, be curious, and listen. Let's live in inquiry. Let's live in curiosity. This is how we better understand each other and how we can maybe reconcile some of the judgment that we're bringing to our exchanges every day, and maybe even with ourselves. Some of these questions might be questions that you even ask yourself. If there's one thing that I have really learned over the past 5 years, since I started keeping that questions journal, inquiry is a powerful thing. Curiosity is a powerful thing. It brings creativity. It is really alchemy, and it brings us to magic. Magic can happen. So, courageous challenge number 2, asking questions. Ask one question in every conversation that you have over the next 30 days. See what happens. Try to keep it as simple as possible, but go out of your questioning comfort zone. Try something new, try something different. See what happens. That's why we're here. We're here to do things a little bit differently and to learn from the experience. Please share your stories, share your questions. Courage Up is the hashtag that you can use. You can reach out to me directly via our website at thecourageeffect.com. And it's going to be a great 30 days. I'm thinking about some of the questions that I might be bringing into new rotation, or that I might be introducing into my rotation over the next month. And summer's kind of a fun time to do this. I feel like this is a time where we have a little bit more headspace, hopefully. Hopefully we're taking some time off and getting a little bit of a break. So let's think of this as an experiment. It's a challenge and it's an experiment. So join me to Courage Up, everybody. Thank you for being a part of the Courage Effect community, and I will see you in July. Thank you for listening. Stay courageous and courage up. The Courage Effect is brought to you by Weller Collaboration. We're a team of talented coaches, executive advisors, and consultants who partner with our clients to enhance their leadership, become more adaptable, and to really get out of their own way to work more effectively together. More information about Weller Collaboration is available via the links in our show notes. Please spread the word about The Courage Effect. Rate and review your favorite episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast platform. Share with your colleagues, family, or anyone in your universe who might be inspired by a good dose of courage. If you have feedback, thoughts, or would like to apply to be a guest, please contact us via our website. Benny Mathers is our producer. Dave Nelson composed our theme music. Alex Sandyforth is our administrative maven. And I'm your host, Suzanne Weller.